The classroom smelled of scorched bearing oil before the floor lurched. Staff Sergeant Lena Hark caught the hanging lesson frame with her left hand and kept speaking. "Balance is not where your feet are," she said. "Balance is where the next force will put you." The frame swung above her shoulder, its translucent surface printed with Ravel Spindle's emergency corridors. My station-born students watched it settle without alarm. They had spent their lives beneath a sky that curved upward on both horizons, and Ravel adjusted its spin often enough that a small shift felt ordinary. The smell did not. Scorched bearing oil belonged in the Governor Galleries near the hub. On my demonstration table, a blackened Governor tooth rested in a foam cradle, its curved edge polished by generations of instructors' hands. I used it to explain mechanical fatigue. Lena released the lesson frame only after its movement stopped. She wore no armor. Her rolled sleeves exposed scars that did not match each other, and a faded unit patch sat above her heart. I had invited her because students remembered stories better than procedures. That was my first mistake. "Staff Sergeant," I said, "you mentioned that battlefield awareness depends on context." "It does. And your service record suggests you have encountered a great deal of context." Her eyes shifted toward me. I changed the lesson frame from emergency routes to combat experience. I had planned to discuss how repeated exposure altered threat recognition. "How many have you killed?" I asked. Silence reached the back wall. Lena cocked her head. "This year or this world?" Several students clicked through their throat plates. My translator hesitated before repeating her words. "This is a habitat," I said, "not a world." Lena looked through the classroom's upper window. Beyond it, orchard terraces rose along the inner curve of Ravel, their leaves silver beneath artificial daylight. Farther up, the opposing district hung upside down across the open air, close enough to see transport lights moving along its streets. Tell that to everyone born under its sky. The floor shifted again. This time it did not return. My lectern slid toward the wall. Chairs tore loose from their magnetic rests. Students shouted as their bodies followed. Lena moved before the alert sounded. She kicked the lectern sideways, changing its path, then caught a student whose lower limbs had tangled in a chair frame. She struck the wall shoulder first, rolled with the impact, and used the student's momentum to guide both of them behind a structural rib. A calm voice emerged from the ceiling speakers. "Minor rotational variance detected. Remain in marked safe lanes." Floor arrows illuminated. They pointed toward the rear doors. Lena stared at them. "What?" I asked. The announcement came late. "The system confirms the event after measurement." "No," her gaze tracked the arrows. "The arrows changed before the second shift." I opened my teaching console. The display showed a mild imbalance in the outer agricultural ring and recommended evacuation toward the central transit spine. The rear doors opened. Emergency recovery personnel filled the corridor beyond them. Gray pressure suits, white helmet bands, magnetic boots already locked to the wall that had become our floor. Ravel's announcement had not yet identified the new gravity direction. Lena's expression became very still. "Aaron," she said, "do your rescue teams usually know which way the world will fall before the world does?" I felt the scorched oil smell thicken in the back of my throat. The recovery leader raised a gloved hand. "Civic class proceed in pairs. Follow the illuminated route. Security authority." Lena stepped between him and my students. "Show me your station credential." The helmet turned toward her. "Move aside, Marine." Credential. The next gravity change arrived without warning. The wall became a ceiling. The recovery team remained attached by their boots. My students and I dropped away from them. Lena did not try to hold her position. She pushed off early, turned in open air and struck the original floor with both feet and a bent knee. The recovery leader's weapon swung loose beneath him. Lena caught its sling as she passed. She pulled. The leader's magnetic boots held. His body did not. His shoulder slammed into the corridor frame and the weapon tore free. Lena landed beside me with the rifle across her forearms. "Safe lane," she said. A cargo cart shot through the rear doors along that route and folded against the opposite wall. No student moved toward the arrows. The recovery personnel drew sidearms. Lena fired the stolen rifle into the ceiling panel above them. Foam suppressant burst across their visors and boot seals. She did not wait to see whether it blinded them. She pointed toward the side storage hatch. "Through there." "That leads to the equipment crawlspace," I said. "Good. It is not an evacuation route." "Better." Training required me to resist unqualified improvisation during infrastructure failure. Instead, I opened the hatch. My students entered the crawlspace while gravity trembled beneath us. Lena remained at the rear. Each time the station changed direction, she loosened, pushed from whatever surface had become useful, and refused the rigid instinct to cling. Nothing looked graceful. Everything worked. The recovery team cut through the classroom door as the last student entered the crawlspace. Lena followed and sealed the hatch. A shot struck the metal behind her, leaving a bright crater. "Those were not recovery workers," I said. "No." "Who are they?" "People who need everyone to believe they are." The crawlspace smelled of insulation, dust, and increasingly burned oil. We moved through service conduits toward the next classroom cluster. My students whispered questions. Their training described slow rotational failures caused by shifting cargo, failed thrusters, or degraded bearings. This was deliberate, violent, and precise. The gravity snapped sideways. A student named Hesh lost his grip. Lena caught his ankle, but the movement pulled her into a conduit brace. Her cheek struck metal. Blood appeared along her jaw. She shoved Hesh toward me. "Keep moving. You are injured." I noticed. "You moved before the shift." The ventilation changed. I tasted the air. I felt nothing. "You breathe slower." That answer irritated me even while it saved us. At the next junction, an official security transmission filled my wrist display. Director Amrek Dane appeared above the station seal, calm and immaculate. "Ravel residents, a spin governor malfunction has compromised several rings. Authorized recovery contractors are assisting local security. Interference with evacuation routes will be treated as sabotage." His face vanished. A private channel opened immediately afterward. "Cache it," he said. I stopped. Lena glanced at my display. "Director, you are sheltering an armed outsider who assaulted emergency personnel. They entered my classroom without credentials. Their credentials are embedded in their suit systems. They refused verification. Because seconds matter." Lena touched the governor tooth I had placed in my coat pocket before leaving the classroom. I had taken it without thinking, perhaps because it was the only familiar object within reach. Dane continued, "Bring your students to Transit Lattice Amber. Marine Hark is to surrender her weapon." Lena leaned close to my wrist. "Director, which governor failed?" A pause. "Outer stabilization." "Which assembly?" "Security channels are not a technical forum." "Then why are your contractors wearing fixed vector boots?" Dane's face hardened. "Staff Sergeant, you are a guest aboard this habitat. Feels like a world from here." He ended the channel. Lena handed the stolen rifle to Hesh and told him to keep the muzzle against the conduit wall. Then she took the blackened governor tooth from my pocket. "What did you say this was?" A retired tooth from a centrifugal governor. It demonstrates ordinary fatigue. She rubbed her thumb across the curved edge. That is not fatigue. You are not a rotation engineer. No, but I know a cut made to look like wear. I took it from her. Under the service light, the polished edge showed faint parallel grooves. I had taught students that the pattern came from uneven contact under long stress. Now, seeing it through her suspicion, the grooves looked too regular. How long has this been in your classroom? She asked. Many cycles. Where did it come from? Security donated obsolete components after the last maintenance review. Lena looked toward the hub. Then we need the active assembly. A station-wide tone interrupted her. The sound signaled route reclassification. Our wrist displays changed at once. The crawl space ahead turned red. The passage behind us turned green. My students began to reverse direction. Lena planted herself in their path. No. The system marked the rear route safe, I said. The system marked the classroom safe. That was before conditions changed. That was before they missed us. Her certainty angered me. You cannot reject every system because a contractor carried the wrong boots. She pointed to a ventilation ribbon streaming toward the green route, though the diagram claimed that sector had sealed. I am rejecting the system that says a sealed corridor is breathing. The gravity tilted. A deep metallic impact rolled through the structure. The red route ahead remained open. The green route behind us irised shut. Several students stared at me. I had spent my career teaching them to trust verified infrastructure. Lena had spent hers discovering what happened after verification failed. We continue forward, I said. We emerged into an empty fabrication studio where suspended printers had crashed against their restraints. Through the panoramic window, Ravel's inner landscape had changed. Orchard terraces that normally stretched in smooth green bands now rippled as root beds pulled against the wrong direction. Water rose from irrigation channels in glittering sheets and struck the upper retaining nets. The habitat's horizon was bending. For the first time, I understood Lena's answer. Ravel had no core, natural atmosphere, or tectonic history. Yet its orchard curve was the first distance I had learned, its upward sky the shape of my childhood dreams. Evacuation might save us. It would not save the world. Lena watched my face. Now you see it. Before I could answer, the studio doors locked. Security drones descended from ceiling recesses. Their weapon arms unfolded. A voice came through the room. Staff Sergeant Hark, Dane said, place your hands where station security can see them. Lena looked at the drones, then at the printers hanging from their restraints. Oren, how fast can you release those machines? They weigh too much. That was not my question. I reached the fabrication console. Security had revoked my ordinary access, but education systems retained emergency demonstration privileges. I opened the restraint menu. The gravity began to change. Lena raised both hands. The drones advanced. Director, she said, you scheduled this class. I approved a civic request. You moved the trained emergency residents into the same ring. To simplify certification, you put your contractors outside the door. They were responding to the failure. You donated the cut part. Dane's silence lasted less than a breath. It was enough. Release them, Lena said. I released the printers. Gravity rolled toward the window. The suspended machines became battering rams. They swept across the studio, tearing drones from the air and driving them into the transparent wall. Lena moved between the machines rather than away from them. She stepped onto the side of a printer as it passed, rode its momentum, and jumped toward the door control. She hit the panel with both boots. The door buckled. Hesh and the others forced it wider. We entered the education transit gallery as armed security officers approached from both ends. These wore RAVEL uniforms. Their faces were visible. Lena lowered the rifle. "Director ordered your arrest," an officer called. "He also put false recovery teams in my classroom," I said. The officer's eyes shifted toward me. "Instructor Keshet, stand clear." I found deliberate scoring on a governor tooth donated by security. "Stand clear." The gallery twisted beneath us. Everyone staggered except Lena, who dropped before the force completed its turn. A recovery contractor appeared behind the officers and fired. The shot struck a RAVEL guard in the back. Confusion broke the line. Lena charged through it. She did not fire at the station officers. She hit the contractor's weapon aside, drove her shoulder into his chest, and used the changing gravity to carry both of them into the ceiling. She released him before impact. He did not release her. His armored mass struck first. Lena rolled away. "Your director's contractors just shot you," she told the fallen guards. "Decide who you work for." Then she kept moving. We reached the maintenance observation gallery above the governor's shaft. The active assembly filled the chamber below. Concentric rings, counterweights, and mechanical teeth designed to translate RAVEL's spin into controlled corrections. Warning lights strobed across the housing. I pressed my hand to the access reader. "Denied." Lena took the classroom tooth and held it against the glass. "Can you magnify the lower ratchet?" I opened the educational inspection optics. The image expanded. The active teeth bore the same parallel scoring. Not wear preparation. Each cut had been placed where stress would deepen it gradually. Ordinary inspection would miss it. Under violent oscillation, the teeth would shear. A data panel beside the housing showed recent access, security authorization, director level. My stomach tightened. Lena's gaze moved across the mechanism, not the record. "I have seen this before," she said. "Here. Not here." She pointed to a damaged coupling. A mining settlement with heavy gravity. They weakened the descent cages and arrived as rescue contractors. Another mark. A dock where people barely weighed enough to keep their boots down. They cut the spin locks, then bought the wreckage. She traced the access path toward the hub. A city built inside a moon shell, same false evacuation, same equipment. Why was no connection reported? Different companies, different uniforms, different worlds. And the dead. Her eyes remained on the assembly. "You wanted a count." I felt shame heat my throat plates. She did not give me time to answer. A hidden service lift moved along the far side of the shaft. Dane stood inside with a sealed case and a security escort. The lift climbed toward the hub capsules. "He is leaving," I said. "He is finishing." Lena enlarged the governor display. Oscillation commands were stacking faster than the assembly could respond. "If he wanted only to escape," she said, "he would stop the pulse." The classroom tooth trembled in my hand. The outer rings would not merely lose gravity. The repeated reversals would tear orchards, reservoirs, transit lines, and residential decks from their supports. Dane intended to leave behind a structure too damaged to reclaim except as scrap. His corporation would buy our world's corpse. A private transmission opened. Dane's image appeared over the governor's shaft. "You have always been an excellent instructor, Keshet," he said. "Do not become a poor survivor." "You cut the governor." I ensured RAVEL reached the end of an unsustainable life. "You invited armed contractors." I invited professionals to manage an inevitable transition. "You are destroying our home." I am preventing sentiment from killing its residents. Lena stepped into the transmission field. The first world taught me how they entered. The next taught me how they lied. This one taught me who invited them. Dane looked at her with something colder than anger. Then the connection ended. The governor housing screamed. A tooth sheared inside the assembly. The entire gallery jumped. Below us, a manual access corridor opened along the axial shaft. Emergency lighting marked a path toward the central ratchet chamber. I knew the system from diagrams. Instructors taught the theory because education credentials included access to public safety infrastructure. The manual ratchet could arrest oscillation if its locking geometry remained intact. No remote system could engage it, while contradictory spin commands continued. "We can lock it," I said. Lena looked at the corridor. Hush contractors were entering from the opposite end. "Wait. You cannot identify the correct ratchet position. You cannot reach it alone." The gallery floor fell away. We dropped toward the window. Lena caught the handrail. I caught her wrist. For a moment, all of Ravel hung beneath us. Then the gravity reversed. We crashed back onto the gallery deck. Lena rose with blood running from her nose. "Take the tooth," she said. "When the displays disagree, trust what fits." That is not a procedure. It is now. We entered the axial passage. The station stopped pretending there was a floor. Ravel's spin pressed us outward, Dane's pulses dragged us sideways, and the failing governor kicked beneath our hands. Emergency markers lagged. Arrows pointed into empty air. Hush soldiers advanced in disciplined bounds, magnetic anchors locking to predicted vectors. Lena moved without prediction. She waited until a force began, accepted it, then changed its result. When the passage threw us toward the outer wall, she did not cling. She pushed from the inner rail, crossed the corridor faster than the soldiers' weapons could track, and struck the wall in a crouch. When gravity pulled us toward the hub, she fired once, not at a body, but at an anchor cable. The severed cable snapped across the passage and tangled an attacker's legs. A new vector arrived. The attacker's boots locked. His body rotated around them. His weapon hit the wall and discharged into the ceiling. Lena was already elsewhere. I crawled, floated, fell, and climbed without knowing which action I performed. The governor tooth dug into my palm. A Hush soldier reached the rail ahead of me. His helmet turned. His rifle followed. Lena fired from behind my shoulder. The shot struck his boot control. His magnets released at the exact moment the station pulled outward. He vanished into a side recess and hit the emergency padding hard enough to stay down. Lena's stolen rifle clicked empty. She discarded it. The field commander entered the passage. His heavy suit carried anchor fins and a weapon linked to his orientation system. Wherever his boots declared a floor, the weapon corrected to match. "You have interfered with lawful reclamation," he said. Lena wiped blood from her mouth. "You shot the lawful security officers. They were an operational obstacle. So are you." He fired. Lena let go of the rail. The shot crossed where her chest had been. The station pulled her toward the ceiling. She caught a conduit, swung around it, and kicked off toward the commander. He anchored both boots. His weapon tracked upward. Gravity changed halfway through her flight. The commander's system corrected. Lena did not. She folded, struck the side wall, pushed again, and arrived from below his weapon arc. Her forearm hit his wrist. The suit locked his elbow to preserve aim. The rigid joint gave Lena a lever. She twisted beneath it. The commander's own anchored stance tore him off balance. He struck her with his free hand. I heard the impact over the governor noise. Lena hit the wall and slid. The commander aimed at her. I threw the governor tooth. It was the only object in my hand. The metal changed nothing, but his gaze followed it. Lena moved. She drove both feet into the weapon housing. The commander's anchors held again. The housing did not. It bent across his chest and locked the firing assembly against his suit. He struck her down. Then he reached for the pulse control on his forearm. "Do not," Lena said. He activated it. The axial passage snapped into a new vector. Lena had already released every grip. The commander remained anchored. His damaged weapon assembly became a rigid arm extending from his body. The force drove it into the governor housing beside him. Metal pierced metal. The weapon discharged inside the suit's anchor system. The commander disappeared in white light and fragments. Lena hit the opposite wall shoulder first. She did not rise. The manual chamber stood open beyond her. I pulled myself toward it. The displays showed incompatible lock positions, each claiming the physical center, while the real ratchet rotated behind moving counterweights. I found the governor tooth where it had lodged against the wall. "Trust what fits," I whispered. The retired tooth had been cut from the same assembly pattern. Its base contained alignment shoulders too crude for optical deception. I pushed it into the first indicated slot. It did not seat. The chamber threw me upward. I held the tooth and tried another. Too narrow. Another force dragged me sideways. My arm struck the ratchet housing. Pain flashed through my wrist. Behind me, hushed survivors entered the passage. Lena moved. She was on her knees, her right arm hanging uselessly. She picked up the field commander's broken anchor fin and shoved herself between the soldiers and the chamber. No speech. No warning. The first attacker fired. Lena turned the fin. The shot deflected into the passage wall. The changing vector pulled the attacker forward. Lena dropped the fin, caught his sleeve, and guided him past her into the chamber frame. She was using almost nothing now. A shoulder. A heel. The direction of falling. I tested another slot. The tooth entered halfway. The ratchet struck it and threw it back into my palm. Wrong. The station groaned around us. Through the chamber's narrow exterior port, I saw an orchard terrace peeling away from its supports. Soil rose in a dark wave. Trees turned their roots toward the open air. My world was coming apart. The displays all changed. Each marked a new center. I closed my eyes. The governor tooth smelled of scorched oil. Fresh oil, not the dry residue from my classroom. Air moved across my face in pulses as the physical ratchet passed behind its shield. The display could lie. The metal could not. I waited for the vibration through the chamber wall, then pushed the tooth into the slot that arrived with it. It seated fully. The manual lever unlocked. Lena. She looked back. A hushed soldier seized her injured arm. She did not fight the grip. She let the next vector pull both of them toward the chamber, then stepped away at the last moment. The soldier's momentum carried him into the ratchet shield. Lena struck the emergency release. The shield closed. His weapon vanished inside the mechanism. I pulled the manual lever. Nothing happened. The tooth held, but the ratchet resisted. Oscillation force drove the lever upward against me. I wrapped both arms around it and hung my weight beneath the handle. Again, Lena shouted. I cannot. You can when the world falls with you. The phrase made no sense until gravity turned. The chamber pulled outward. I released the floor, kept both arms around the lever, and let Ravel's own force drag my body down. The lever moved. The ratchet engaged. A sound like a mountain breaking passed through the station. Then every direction stopped changing. Not gently. The final correction slammed us against the outer wall. My vision darkened. Somewhere close, Lena cried out. The governor teeth caught. The oscillation ceased. For several breaths, Ravel held a single gravity vector. The emergency lights steadied. The surviving Hush contractors lay scattered through the passage, fixed anchors, pointing toward floors that no longer existed. Ravel's security arrived with weapons facing them. Lena sat against the wall, cradling her shoulder. I looked at the tooth embedded in the manual ratchet. It would never return to my demonstration table. A security officer approached. Director Dane launched from the hub. "Track him," I said. His capsule entered Noxara traffic. Identification transponder is dark. He had escaped. Yet the governor records, access authorizations, contractor channels, schedules, and maintenance substitutions remained. He had lost the world he meant to sell. The station speakers came alive. Rotational stability restored. Residents are instructed to remain in place pending structural inspection. Lena laughed once, then winced. "What?" I asked. That announcement came on time. We emerged from the axial passage after the Orchard crews reported that the retaining nets had held. Several terraces had shifted. Irrigation systems had ruptured. Transit rails had twisted. Ravel would require months of repair. But the world was still turning. Residents gathered along the observation galleries. Some touched the walls as if greeting a living thing. Others stared across the open interior at the damaged orchards and the familiar upward curve beyond them. No evacuation order followed. The Reclamation Corporation transmitted a formal offer of assistance before the evidence against Dane finished uploading. Ravel's Civic Council rejected it without debate. My students found Lena near the medical transit door. Hesh still carried the stolen rifle, muzzle pressed safely against the wall as she had instructed. He offered it back. She looked at it. "Give it to security." He did. No student asked how many she had killed. Later in the classroom, I opened the incident record. The lesson frame hung crooked where Lena had caught it. Scorch marks darkened the rear doors. The foam cradle on my demonstration table was empty. The record required an account of visiting personnel. Lena Hark's file opened beside the field, labeled Confirmed Hostile Fatalities. My hand rested above the entry surface. I thought of the mining settlement she had mentioned, the low-gravity dock, the city inside a moon shell, different companies, different uniforms, different worlds, a pattern no total could reveal. I left the field empty. Instead, I recorded the cut geometry, the false rescue sequence, the fixed vector equipment, the compromised arrows, and the security authorization that had opened the doors. At the end, the system requested a location classification. Habitat, the menu suggested. I deleted it. World I entered. Beyond the observation glass, Ravel's spindle held its horizon beneath Noxara's night.